For years men have searched all the hand-me-down land for Mother Nature's best. Longhorn, velvet, breathtaking beauty, thank God we're among the blessed.
Hey guys, Lee Vandenbrink here, and I want to talk to you about things to think about, what to look for, and some realistic expectations going into this hunting season and establishing a lease in a different state, or at least a couple hours away in your home state. A lease can be a pretty big investment when it comes to hunting. You're paying to hunt somebody else's land. You have limited capabilities of what you're allowed to do to that land. Most of the time, this landowner just owns the land, doesn't do much with it. Maybe it's just a farmer, and he's got some timber on the property that he doesn't use for agriculture purposes. And there's not a lot of habitat work done to it. It's just been this standing piece of property it's just been sitting there for a long time that he's opened up to you to be able to lease. So going into that, there's a lot to look for. I'm going to break down a few things to really just look at and think about going into this hunting season as you're looking for a lease. The first thing I look at is it just going to be me and maybe a friend, or is it going to be a group and get a good deer camp going this year? I like to really nail down the state and the number of guys that I'm going to look for a lease before I even consider purchasing a lease. Next is realistic goals going into this season. We all get super excited about hunting season all summer long, and as you're looking for a lease, you're looking at these properties that have a lot of potential, and I think a lot of us get excited about the season and don't set realistic expectations or goals on how many times you're actually going to go to that property. Driving distance is a big thing. We all have really busy schedules with family, kids, sports, work, whatever it is. I think that 5 hours and under is a pretty good sweet spot of being able to continuously go to that lease and hunt it, like I said, for long weekends, make a couple trips down there throughout the year, and really take full advantage of the hunting lease that you're looking to leasing this year. Next is something that I think a lot of people underestimate, and that's property layout. What is your access to the property? If you have a property that you realistically are only going to go and hunt maybe 2 or 3 times throughout the entire season, then access isn't as important. But if you're planning on going there and hunting that property, every other weekend, you want to spend some time there during the rut and then late season and even early season, access is very important as far as what's your prevailing wind in that area. Every time that you go to hunt it, are you just blowing the deer off the property where you show up on day one, blow all the deer off the property, and then you spend the time just sitting there in the tree and not seeing any deer? So either hopefully access allows you to access the property from the downwind side of the prevailing wind in that area, or you just have a couple different access from different roads that you're able to sneak into that property, keep minimal pressure on that lease. That's one thing that's kind of beneficial about having a lease, that's you're not always on it, so that the deer are getting pressured from neighboring properties, and they're starting to use your lease because it's limited pressure and they feel safe and comfortable, and you want to be able to keep that throughout the season. So access is huge. Another thing to think about when it comes to your property layout, and again going back to your realistic goals of how many times you're going to hunt that lease, is it all ag? Is it a giant funnel? Is it all timber? And what time of the year are you actually going to make it to that lease? Let's say you just, you can't do early season, or you can't do the rut, but that late season you have a lot of opportunities. So you want to look at it as far as more ag. Is there food on that property? Are the deer going to be coming to that property? Or is it really thick timber where they're living on that property and venturing out to the neighbor's property to get that ag and that food? Or on the other hand, is it a giant rut funnel? In other words, is there a big gully or a ditch that runs through your property, CRP surrounding that funnel, and make a really safe, just good cruising spot for bucks to travel during the rut? Maybe the rut is when most guys take that that week period off, and they're hunting that first week November, second week November, or Halloween up to second week November. Those areas you're gonna really capitalize on that. So again, just having those realistic goals of when you're gonna hunt the property and how often you're gonna hunt the property, and looking at the property as far as, does this make sense Are the deer going to be on this property or traveling through this property the time of year that I'm actually going to be there and hunting it? Now let's talk about the landowner. Again, you're putting a big investment down on this lease, and at the end of the day, you don't own it. It's very limited usually what you're allowed to do to that property to make it a better hunting season for yourself. So talking with the landowner before you make that lease and setting clear guidelines or rules is very important to do. Some landlords are very easy to work with, and some are just, you're allowed to show up, hunt, the land is mine, don't touch it. So just again, setting those guidelines and the rules of what you want to get out of your hunting season and what the landowner is going to allow you to do is very important. Lastly, this is kind of a bonus, something that not a lot of guys are thinking about because they're making this big investment on having their own piece of property that they can do. One thing to really think about is that lease, or is there state land close to that lease? If there's state land close by, it allows you to hunt a different area without blowing up your farm. Hunt those mornings. You've already made that commitment to drive to your lease. The last thing you want to do is kind of sit back and sleep in every morning just because your property doesn't allow access and very good access in the morning. So having that state land close by is, I feel like, a very just added bonus to that lease. So those are just a couple things to think about as you're looking for a lease this upcoming season. Buck Bourbon is one thing that can really help you along the way too. If baiting is legal in that state, adding some 110 proof or some liquid mineral to your property, establishing that routine of keeping those deer on your property, you're gonna have a better hunting experience, a better leasing experience. So hopefully some of these points help. If you're interested in any of the Buck Bourbon product, just visit www.buckbourbon.com. Good luck this season and stay tuned. We're gonna have more videos on what to do once you have the lease and once you've established your lease for this upcoming season, things that you can do to improve your entire experience of the lease.